Hello, I'm Michael Sameka, and I'm the developer of Catalyst. That's me on the table, about to receive a session from Bill Laney, who is my Catalyst. Catalyst is a bodywork approach that enhances the body's ability to function well by functioning as neurological nutrition, meaning the contacts themselves promote optimal functioning in that it helps the body reset itself. Bill is doing a very gentle scan. You can see him rocking my body. We call that a dynamic scan, and when he runs his hand up and down my body, that's called a tactile scan. He's just looking for the general tone of my body and how it's feeling and how it's functioning. And you can see my head is pretty loose there. And we call that welcoming. He's starting me out face down. I was wired for this session to get room noise, my breath sounds, not really using that too much. So Bill is going to basically right now continue to get a sense of my starting point, right? We call that a baseline. This is where I'm beginning. He's welcoming me unconditionally, meaning he's going to allow me to be whatever I am tonally. And all human beings have a specific tensional integrity in their body. It's called tensegrity. And he's just looking for that tensegrity. As you can see him setting up, getting ready, putting himself in the right state so that he, as a facilitator, really does provide neurological nutrition. And again, the wire is just getting tangled around me, and he's just fixing that. I'm actually getting acclimated right here and being a participant in receiving, which is very important to be in the best possible position, which is really what being a participant is participating in the session. And I'm doing whatever I can to open myself to best receive, to be as dynamic as possible. Bill is just watching my breath, and he's getting a good sense of what's happening. And he's just, again, this is all just gathering information about the baseline where I'm starting. And his touch is neurological nutrition. So what he's doing is he's very, very careful to not go too deep or be too superficial with his scans. I see Catalyst as a form of meditation, except it's an active meditation in that there is stimuli coming in from an outside source, in this case, Bill. I'm not just stopping, I'm being encouraged to stop with stimuli that would help my body process and adapt. So we have these things called positions of greatest acceptance, and Bill is now lifting my legs to find out if there's any specific position that's going to help the breath or the peace move through my body better than if my legs were just laying flat on the table. And it's an inquiry that he's in, and he's watching for changes, and he's getting an idea about the position of greatest acceptance and what allows for greater breath. With Catalyst, a lot of the work comes because of a participant, in this case me on the table, receiving passive movements. So my body can stay as relaxed as possible. And in the movements, when he lifts my legs like that, it allows for releases that otherwise couldn't happen if I were to bring my legs up. That would create, look at like right there. So he just did a little contact, a little flick contact, like in contour and cognitive touch, two techniques that we have in Catalyst. And it worked as an initiation, if you will, or a catalyst to help me get aware of what I can do to reposition my body to be in the best possible position. And this is something that we call somatic dissemination. And what you'll notice about Bill, and that's helping me become aware that I needed to reposition my arms. Bill's keeping his back as straight as possible. He's on one knee to really make it clear for him to perceive well. And again, he did some contacts there, and you saw the stimuli that he put in my nervous system for me to experience. We call that enhancing awareness. So me and my body became more aware of the tensional integrity of my body. And again, I'm rehearsed at being a participant and what that means. And so, of course, you saw my legs respond because I'm trying to understand a little more about where I'm supposed to be. This is one of my favorite moves right here. This is passive movements, right? We use this for recalibration. And you can see that where his hand is right now has the greatest degree of torque, okay? And so as you move toward my head, there's less rotation, less torque. Well, that really helps the body recalibrate because of the proprioceptive system of the body and how many receptor sites there are in between each spinal level, where the discs are. They're just very, very rich with receptors. And so when you do that kind of lift, the body gets to recalibrate organically, and you could see the movements of my body as I received that. And again, he's looking for breath, peace, movement, all areas that are actually working instead of areas that may be more dense, bundled up, a little stressed out, right, that are tighter. In our society, most people are looking for problems. In Catalyst, we're looking for what's working. And so for Bill, he's seeing the right side as being far more supportive to work than the left side, meaning the right side was actually looser, had more peace, breath, movement, and fluidity. And what he's doing now is positional integration. He's fine-tuning my body's position to find out what specific position, as he works with my right arm, to get a sense of where the breath is the greatest. And then how does that breath expand throughout my body? What kind of motions and movements allow for the most dissemination, if you will, of peace, breath, movement, and fluidity throughout my body? The breath in this case, from this perspective of the camera, seems very shallow. From Bill's perspective, it could be, obviously the amplitude could be much greater because he's in a much better position to see the flow of breath. From this camera angle, you can't really see too much. Bill is clearly plugged into what is best. It looks to me as though he's looking at internal and external rotation to find out where the greatest amount of receptivity lies. As he starts to take my shoulder off the table with his left hand, you can see where it's connected to the elbow. Clearly he's getting a greater response, and now he's bringing the arm down. You could feel all of that. And he's just really in the inquiry about what areas bring the greatest amount of breath. That was a pretty nice response right there. So watching this video, people like you and me who are watching, we actually get the benefit of watching this because of what's called mirror neurons. It's what people like to refer to as the Gandhi gene. It's our ability to empathize. And we see movements like this and the body responding like this. We can actually relate to that because we have memory of that, or we can empathize or imagine what that's like. So there's actually benefit in watching a video like this when you're able to see, like when I saw that breath increased, you heard me have a little bit of a laugh. That was because I really was able to relate to that. And in that moment of me observing that, I got to experience the benefit again. Okay, this again is somatic dissemination with a dynamic scan. He's just again looking about the wiggle room. What's too deep, what's not deep enough. And you can see his scan is within a specific range, right? That's the amplitude of how far he's allowed to go, right? We call that depth. We don't like to call it pressure we don't want to put pressure on the body, right? Because that seems to be overwhelming. But we do want to scan for depth, find out this is too much, this is too little, this is just right. And we work within that wiggle room. We say this is very little depth, this is, yeah. And then he got off quickly, which is very catalytic. We call that a recoil. And you can see my body quickly is using that information that it received, that awareness, to inspire me on where that wants to go. And I'm in the inquiry of what does my body want to do? Where does it want to go with that contact? And that's because I'm very obviously, again, I've received a lot of Catalyst sessions since 1994. So it's almost organic for me to respond as a participant in where does that want to go? What does my body want to do with that?
Much more negotiability in the back now. Upper back.
More dynamic scanning. He's deciding to go back to the leg again. And the reason that is more whole body dynamics. When he's further away, obviously, just a little movement is going to have much more of a whole body dynamics kind of response. And it's more subtle, which means the body is more able to process, meaning adapt to it. And again, he's working with the wiggle room, right? That's a beautiful term we like. And he's trying to find, again, amplitude and frequency. I'm trying not to speak on his behalf, but I understand that it is a lot of where is the peace, where is the breath, where is the movement? You know, what areas are making things even more open, more dynamic, more responsive? This work is based on something called neuroplasticity. And with neuroplasticity, we're trying to get the body to rewire itself in much more flexible, what's called malleable, that's the term plastic, in much more flexible kind of ways. And again, Bill doesn't care where that is. He's just in the inquiry to find out. And while he's doing that, he's making sure that he's not overwhelming the body, meaning he's staying within the parameters of peace, breath, movement, and fluidity, which again, the body receiving that kind of care, it becomes neurological nutrition for the body. And just imagine what it's like when you're having good food versus, let's just call it toxic food, a food that's not so healthy. And the body, being a receptive-based system that continually adapts to the environment, is receiving Bill's neurological nutrition, which is an increase of awareness, and then using that awareness, as I am right here, to understand what I can do to be more connected to my body, to support my body being a vessel of peace, breath, movement, and fluidity. My knees are folded, my arms are going to the top of my head, and all of this is just repositioning of where my body really wants to be now that I'm more in touch with the intelligence or wisdom, the awareness of my body. This is one of my favorite moves. Bill is the creator of this, actually. It's just positional work, but the way he uses his body, if you look at his body mechanics, it's actually incredible. You can see there's very, very little stress on him. His back is straight. His leg is comfortable. Everything is at 90 degrees. His knee is at 90 degrees. His hip is at 90 degrees. So he is not exerting much energy at all, which is wonderful as a facilitator. So I'm getting the benefit of him being at peace. And he's, again, scanning, looking for wiggle room, finding what's working. Now, understand, while he's in this inquiry, I'm getting the benefit of his body being in this sincere, very respectful approach, inquiry. And that becomes the neurological nutrition that I receive as benefit. I also become very highly tuned, as does my body, to what's going on. So, and that's pretty important. There is something called somatic awareness or body awareness. And I look at that there's two components to somatic awareness or body awareness. There's one where I am becoming more aware of the body. That's almost cognitive, right? I am a participant. I'm understanding. I'm learning about how my body holds tension or distributes tension. But then there's also the body becoming aware of the body, which is pretty exciting. Now look at this move. So he's actually lifting my hips off of the table, and you can see the effortlessness. And again, this is passive movement, so I'm getting a tremendous amount of benefit. That move can never, ever happen with that kind of utility, that kind of effectiveness, if I were doing it myself. First off, I would need to have my feet on the table to lift that part of my body up. Now, the body is very opportunistic. By these passive movements, it's getting to release things that otherwise it couldn't release. And again, the body mechanics of the facilitator is really paramount here. And you will notice that Bill's body mechanics, when he did that move, was actually very impressive. So there was no stress going into his body that would be detrimental. It wouldn't exceed metabolic capacity. There was little itty bitty tensions going on, but nothing that was really stressing him out. And so I wasn't feeling or taking in on my nervous system any stress from that he was experiencing. And again, this is me just showing signs of being in touch with my increased awareness. Great breath there, great release. You can see I'm empowered here to move certain ways and to do certain things. And that's very, very important, that a participant, in this case me, really gives myself permission to be a participant, to be involved in this process, and to use whatever increase of awareness I'm enjoying to apply it to wherever it wants to go, right? To whatever it's inspiring me to do. And you can see there are a lot of moments of stillness here. The hand on my head, for whatever reason, is really helping me at that point to even gain greater awareness. And obviously, whatever awareness I needed to get, I've received because I've repositioned my hands. Bill is seeing this as an invitation to come in and scan what is going on tonally. He has been working on me for quite a long time, steadily one-on-one for the last 12 or 13 years. I've been receiving Catalyst weekly from him. What you'll notice here is the years of me receiving Catalyst. Like, you could see how solid my body is on the table and how passive I'm being. And you could see how loose my neck really is. I mean, it's almost comical. If you could see how incredibly loose I am, you could see that my plasticity is pretty good, while the rest of my body, from my chest on down, my hips, is pretty much locked in. You could see how loose I am here. And that's pretty exciting if you watch this. It almost looks as if my head's not really attached to my body. It is so loose. And Bill is just looking again here of where is it rooted. That's not his intention, of course. He's still working on peace, breath, movement, and fluidity. But he could see where, or feel, it's called percussive scan. He could feel percussively where that movement is rooting. All that flexibility that you saw in my neck, that was quite comical. He could feel where that's actually rooting, where that's going into. How far down my body is that actually going? I'm going to be quiet for a little while here because the resonance of my talking is not anywhere near as effective as the resonance of this session. And changing of position is for integration. I know that I'm at the end of the session here, and I'm trying to be a participant, or I'm succeeding in being a participant to support integration. Coming back into my body, you can tell that I'm getting a sense that the session is almost complete. We have something called practical integration, where the participant is in the inquiry of what can I do to maintain this session. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm actively integrating to try to keep this state, this awareness, and this increased peace, breath, movement, and fluidity in my body. You could probably witness the checking in, that I'm having a deep, intimate connection with my body to get an idea of how to move.
That's it. Thank you.
Yep, and there I just said, that's it, thank you. There was a sense that it was done and I was complete. I hope that was helpful.